What's up guys, Brad here. In this video, let's talk about 8K, why you don't need it, and maybe a couple things that could actually benefit from 8K. Let's get started. If you're new to the channel, I post home theater and gaming related content. If you dig this video and want to see more like it, consider hitting that subscribe button and clicking that bell notification so you'll never miss out when I do upload a new video. Also, check out the description below for some Amazon affiliate links. I do get a small commission from these, which doesn't cost you a dime and helps support the channel. Now, before we dive into why 8K isn't all it's cracked up to be, I think it's important to go over where we're at with 8K and why it's being talked about. So there are a few manufacturers making 8K panels currently, including LG, Samsung, and Sony, and you're going to pay a premium for those high-end models. Even something like the $18,000 JVC RS3000 projector isn't native 8K, but instead uses lens shift to generate what is essentially a faux 8K image. Even then, the only way to get 8K content currently is by hooking up a capable PC to your display, and then you're limited to whatever YouTube videos are in 8K and whatever games you have. So not a whole lot of ways to get content. With the upcoming Xbox Series X and PS5, as well as the recent launch of Nvidia's 3090 graphics card, we're seeing 8K being thrown around left and right. Now, both console manufacturers have gone on record stating that they will support resolutions up to 8K at 60 frames per second using HDMI 2.1, and Nvidia actually used 8K gaming as a selling point for the 3090 graphics card, which is kind of funny, I guess, because that's essentially a workstation card. You may have also seen videos from channels such as Linus Tech Tips and MKBHD praising the 8K performance of the 3090 graphics cards while using a LG Z9, which is a $30,000 8K OLED TV. And you'd be correct in assuming that these were also basically paid advertisements by Nvidia. Now, I'm not knocking these channels at all. I'm just saying that these were meant to be more long-form, entertaining commercials and should be viewed as such. So with all that said, why don't you need 8K? Well, remember when I said that getting content's a crapshoot? Well, that's one big reason right now. Even with the launch of the next-gen consoles and the new Nvidia graphics card, that's just not going to change, especially in regards to movies. Many Hollywood productions shoot in resolutions lower than 4K and have a final output of around 2K, which is just slightly more than 1080p. Now granted, those 4K versions do have HDR, which can have a bigger impact on overall image quality than resolution alone, but you get my point. There's simply no native 8K content coming out of Hollywood right now. There are cameras that shoot upwards of 6K resolution, and while some movies have shot in that resolution in the past, such as David Fincher's Gone Girl, the post-production costs for editing, file storage, and especially visual effects are far too much to be considered for every film, especially big blockbusters like the Marvel franchise. Avengers Endgame, one of the biggest, most profitable movies ever made, was actually shot in 6.5K but finished and delivered at 2K. And believe it or not, most of the 4K UHD discs out there aren't even native 4K, but instead 2K transfers. I know, crazy. Now, older movies shot on film that have been well preserved may eventually get 8K scans and can look better, such as what Warner Brothers did for the Wizard of Oz remastering. But this really isn't typical, and most older films are scanned in 4K, as 8K scanning is still far too costly. But what's the biggest reason you don't need 8K? Have you guessed it by now? If you haven't, it's okay. A lot of people actually don't even think about it. But let me ask you this question. How far away do you currently sit from your TV or display? Let's say you have a 65-inch, no, scratch that. Let's say you have a 75-inch 4K TV that you sit 10 feet away from. Guess what? Even with 20/20 vision, at 10 feet away from a 75-inch 4K television, you are not resolving any detail from that 4K image at all. In fact, from that distance, you couldn't tell the difference between 1080p resolution and 4K resolution. In order to resolve all of that 4K resolution and detail, you need to sit about 5 feet from that 75-inch 4K TV. Do you see where I'm kind of going with this? If you have to sit 5 feet away from a 75-inch 4K TV, how close do you need to be to a 75-inch 8K TV to resolve all that 8K detail and resolution? You ready? 2.5 feet. That's right, 2.5 feet away from your display. You could literally reach out and touch the bezel of the display or the screen if you wanted to. That is way too close for pretty much everyone. And most people already sit 10 feet or more away from their display as it is. So really, if you buy a 75-inch 8K TV and sit 10 feet away from it, you literally could not tell the difference between 8K resolution, 4K resolution, and even 1080p resolution. Now, that's some food for thought. That's why I've always been of the opinion that HDR has a far bigger impact on overall picture quality than resolution. So those are some reasons you don't need 8K, but are there any things that could actually benefit from that resolution? Well, for one, extremely large projection screens are really the only place I think 8K makes sense as far as display technologies go. Even then, you'd have to sit around 5 feet away from a 150-inch screen for your eyes to resolve all that detail. It'd be like sitting at the front row of a movie theater, which I guess if that's your thing, more power to you. I don't know, personally me, I think that's the worst seat in the house. Typically the audio sucks, the projector screen's perspective is all out of whack, and then you just end up doing this the whole movie. Wow, that was Tony Stark or something. If we switch gears from displays and projectors and start talking about games rendered at 8K, I think that's where we start to see some of the biggest benefits and gains. Rendering a game at a higher resolution, then downsampling that to whatever your native resolution of your display is, has been around for quite some time and is often referred to as super sampling. Even resolutions like 1080p can benefit greatly from super sampling. It results typically in a visibly sharper image with fewer jagged edges than if you were to render the game at your display's native resolution. At a high enough resolution, you can even disable things like anti-aliasing, as those jagged edges just won't be as visible anymore. Now, the Xbox One X and PS4 Pro, as well as the PC, have had this capability for a while, and the Xbox Series X, as well as the PS5 and Series S, should offer this as an option as well. Now, it goes without saying though, rendering a game at 8K requires a ton of GPU horsepower, and your CPU does come into play if you want to game at higher refresh rates. That's why we likely won't see native 8K games on these next-gen consoles unless they're using some type of image reconstruction or AI upscaling. Also keep in mind that in order to benefit the most, a game needs high-resolution textures and poly counts that were designed around gaming at higher resolutions. So playing an older game like Half-Life 2 at 4K or 8K isn't instantly going to make it look like a modern game. Sure, it'll look better than it does at native resolution, but it will be a far cry, get it, from a current game. So what are your thoughts on both 8K displays and gaming? Is it the future or just some marketing BS? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a big thumbs up. It lets me know that you appreciate this type of content. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next one where I'm an alien from another planet and I need to get my teeth capped.
Let's just take a look.